Welcome back, everyone. It is tier list day, and today we have one I'm actually super excited to do, not filled with memes, and that is video game consoles and handhelds tier list. Something that I came across, I think, on TikTok. I saw someone doing this, and I was like, man, I've been a gamer my whole life, and I have owned almost every console at some point and played a variety on games. Of course, there's going to be some obscure ones that I never got my hands on. Like I never got the Linux. I have this Atari, the 2600, but hadn't played the other variants. And I mean, there's some of these older ones that I've never had or tested or played. But starting about, let's see here, I'll zoom in for you guys a little bit. Starting about, here, I don't know. I would say Nintendo 60 or SNES, NES, and on. I have played and touched all of them. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to edit some stuff. F, and then we'll do a row below played, and we'll make that a gray. All right, so I'm going to rate this on a couple things here, and you guys can join in the comments on what you think. The console itself, how good it is. The controllers, because controllers matter, and the games. Those are the three things I'm going to rate them on. Obviously, the old ones, I don't know about the tech as much. I'm not really a tech guy. Those aren't the things that I'm really interested in, but obviously something like the Wii console versus like the PS3 and Xbox 360, these were more powerful, but the Wii also came with a whole new outlook on stuff. So I don't know. We're just going to go through these and I'm going to give my input. So I'm going to go ahead and sift through the ones that I've never touched before, because there's a good chunk of them. Okay, so all these ones are mostly old tech. I do have the gauge. The gauge is weird though. I'm not a fan of it. I think the rest of these I do have or have played. So let's jump into it. Obviously, the Atari 2600 and Atari in general is kind of where gaming really got its start. Most people, when you think of super old games, you're thinking of something on the Atari, Jumpman, Pong, different things of that variance. Obviously, when you're playing some of those old games, Centipede, Galaga, they are classics for a reason. And I think that we have to pay homage to them. The console itself is obviously super weak. The tech's garbage. The controller's garbage. The games are still fun today. They're still very challenging, but you can have a good time. I think they're fun for parties. I think they're fun for arcades. Like if you go to some of the new age arcades like Boondocks or the one with the wings, like they still have variants of some of these old games, like New Age Centipede or New Age Galaga or Pac-Man, etc., etc. A lot of these games started on Atari, so I think giving it a solid B is where we got to go with it. Mostly being carried by the games. Nat Geo or Neo Geo Pocket, not awesome, not great. I had it when I was younger, and I had like 2 games for it that I really never played. It was like a Simpsons game where it's like a side scroller, way too hard to play. And then it was like some kind of like the Japanese, I think it originated from Japanese, where you're a ship and there's tons of stuff shooting at you and you got to dodge all of it. I don't remember which one it was because I know there's tons of variants of that game, but I was never a big fan of it. It's really blocky. It's a handheld, but like it's like a console in your hand. Just not super great. The good old Wii. I really think that if we deny what the Wii did, we're really not being true to gamer culture, right? The Wii really revolutionized some stuff. It was the fastest selling console. I think it still has sold the most, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I can pull something up here. Most selling console of all time. Oh, okay. So PlayStation 2 is the most selling, followed by Xbox One, and then the Nintendo Wii, and then the Switch. Let me see if that's correct. We'll just go by Wikipedia and hope that Wikipedia is correct. PlayStation 2, Nintendo DS, Game Boy and Game Boy Color, PS4, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation Wii, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360. So that's kind of your echelon. Nintendo DS family. I mean, handhelds are one thing, right? Like they sell, they sell like hotcakes. PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 4 being in the top 5 really kind of says a lot. And Nintendo Switch is starting to catch up to the PS4, which makes sense. And then you got your Xbox 360 coming in a little bit lower. Xbox One's not doing great, and then kind of tapers off from there. But no, I think the Wii was great. If you haven't played Wii Sports, I'm kind of shocked by that. Wii Sports was one of the biggest things out there. It seemed like everywhere you went, any party, any house, someone had a Wii and someone was playing Wii Sports from that like 2011 to like 2013. There were a lot of great games on there. Mario Kart, Zeldas, Fire Emblems, all that stuff. We produced some great games. And for me, I hold it pretty high. Not that I spent a lot of time on there, but I had a lot of fun at parties and different events with like Wii Sports. And I think it's still fun to this day to break it out and play. Nintendo 3DS, pretty cool. Definitely a better handheld than the Neo Geo. But it's not my favorite handheld. I think that nostalgia holds my favorite handheld, and then I think that handhelds minus the Switch are kind of trash. My personal opinion. Don't take offense to it. The Nintendo 3DS, though, I haven't spent a lot of time on there. I've played a Pokemon game or two, and I've attempted a Fire Emblem game, I think, and maybe a Dragon Quest game. I can't remember. Great console, a lot of fun. I think the hardware's pretty solid. It feels good in the hand. The 3DS aspect of it, though, like the 3D aspect, just really, I don't give a shit. I don't really care for 3D stuff. I've never been a fan of it. I think it's kind of a weird ploy to even go for 3D things at this point. Does anyone really like, yeah, let's get 3D? Like, who gives a shit? The Wii U. I think we can all agree that the Wii U was probably one of the worst follow-ups to a fantastic console that has ever happened in our console history. I don't know what they were thinking. Nothing about it was good. The motion controls were garbage. The tech was garbage. This handheld, this wannabe portable handheld just was shit. And there was a lot of people for a while where they thought Nintendo was dead. They thought that they were going to have to just become publishers. Which, I'll be honest with you, from a fan standpoint of Nintendo, I was kind of excited because I was like, man, they're going to be able to put, like, we might get, like, Mario and all the gang on, like, an Xbox or PlayStation with better tech. Great. We now know with the Switch, they're not going anywhere anytime soon, if ever. They'll always be relevant. But there were talks during the Wii U time cycle where they're like, man, no one's buying the Wii U. It's complete shit. The few people who bought it for a Zelda, that was about their market. I mean, I think I have it pulled up still. I can look where they were at. Wii U, Wii U, Wii U. I don't even know if it's on this list. Here, I'll bring it over for you guys to see. Atari 2600 sold better than the original Xbox. I always think that's funny. Wii U right there. So 13.56 million. It's actually doing just as well as a PlayStation 5 right now. That's because they just haven't made enough PlayStation 5s. But I mean, when you look at stuff like this is 2012, and then you compare it to GameCube that came out in 2001, you're like, oh, but it's only like 7 million away from GameCube. It's like, yeah, but look how many people game now versus then. You know, how many people, when I was in 2001, I was in first grade. I got a GameCube because my dad wanted a GameCube, and I wanted to play all the games on there with him. You know, the Wii U 2012, we had a ton of gamers. Like, compare it to The 3DS maybe not the best one. I mean, even PlayStation 2 has 2,000. You have almost 155 million sales. So it's like, I think comparing them is just kind of silly, in my opinion. But yeah, the Wii U didn't sell good. I think it sold to every Nintendo fan thinking it was going to be the greatest thing. I bought one, and I hated it. I played it maybe a dozen times. Never went back to it. Okay, and then we have the Switch. I think the Switch is fantastic. Lots of great games. I think the Switch is killing it right now. It's dropped. I mean, Animal Crossing was one of the largest games ever made. All the Mario games have been great. Mario Kart has been great. Super Smash Bros. Has been great. I think the console itself is pretty decent. The only thing that I hate is on this one specifically, I have already gone through a pair of Joy-Cons. And sometimes it feels like you could just rip them right off if you're using the handheld version. Like, I'm not a fan of the Joy-Cons at all. If they had better controllers, I probably would put it in S tier. It's holding back from the controls right now for me. That's the worst part about it, and I think that if they could do better with those, they would probably be one of the best consoles. All right, next on the list we have an obvious classic, and that's the NES. I mean, we're talking, this is the beginning of everything. Your Zeldas, your Marios, your Donkey Kongs, your everything you can think of. This was the Final Fantasy. I mean, it just was the pinnacle of games. This was what brought gaming to a larger market. I think that the NES is what, like, when you think of gaming, like, you have to think of the NES. It's, in a lot of ways, I think that it was a perfect console. The controller was basic and straightforward, but it wasn't confusing like some of these older ones were. You had 2 buttons, you had your start and your pause, and you had a directional pad. It was easy and simple to learn, but then you'd have horrendously difficult games on there. And it just added to the fun. You know, like, one of my favorites is Root Beer Tapper. Super basic game. Harder than all hell. It makes Dark Souls look like a kid's game. You know, so it's cool, that perspective. And if you haven't got the time to spend on NES and some of the original games, you're really missing out. I mean, I think, I'm trying to think. I always get NES and SNES mixed up with some of the classics. But there's so many on NES that you could list. And I think pretending that it's not one of the best consoles ever made is dumb. As a matter of fact, I'd probably put it at an S tier and drop Wii down to an A tier. The original Game Boy, fantastic. I mean, we're talking, this started one of the biggest franchises in the world, which is obviously Pokemon games. If you haven't played a Pokemon game, I'm sorry. You really are missing out. You don't even have to like Pokemon to enjoy those games. They're fun. They can be difficult at times. It has a grind aspect, has a collection aspect. It really has all of them, even the original ones. Red, yellow, and blue, and green were phenomenal. And the transition into gold and silver was just as good, if not better. I mean, the Pokemon games were great, and that's just one small franchise that was on the Game Boy. Just one, I say small. It was the biggest one, but there's so many other amazing games on the Game Boy. And I think that it's always will hold up the test of time. SNES has to go in the A tier, and I'll tell you why. Is it took everything that was great about the NES and made the games better, but it continued the legacy, right? I think I'm putting NES in this legacy spot because it was like, we really built the foundation with the NES, and then the Super Nintendo just continued it. More great games. You got your Earthbound, you got your Chrono Trigger, you got your Mana whatever, you have your Final Fantasy games, you have your Super Mario, you know, and all of them are better than what was on NES, but NES was the ground, was the root, was the beginning. And I loved the SNES controller. You added 2 extra buttons and then you had your top triggers. It just felt good. It felt good in the hand, giggity. It was a great console. Nintendo 64, in my eyes, is my personal favorite console. It's what got me into gaming. I've spent hundreds of hours. I still play I still play Nintendo 64 all the time. Mario Kart, Mortal Kombat, Turok, Smash Bros, Star Fox 64, which is arguably my favorite game of all time. GoldenEye. I mean, everyone has played GoldenEye. It's a staple in gaming. I mean, Perfect Dark. The list goes on. I think that Nintendo 64's gaming catalog arguably is one of the best ones to ever exist still to this day. But I think the only thing that Nintendo 64 gets a really big blemish on is the controller. The controller sucks ass. Always has. Introducing this third middle part was really dumb. And if you did game a lot on it, the joystick would wear out. You'd have to buy a new controller. I've gone through fucking probably 5 or 6 in my lifetime. The Rumble Pack's okay. The console itself never really had many issues, at least for me. It was just strictly the controller. The controller wasn't great. I think we all know it wasn't great, but you kind of work with what you have. Game Boy Color. I'm putting the Game Boy Color above the Game Boy. Obviously, it's the same exact thing, just everything is in color. It's a better screen. It's a better hardware. It's just awesome. I love the Game Boy Color. I still have mine with this exact coloration, like the kind of that 90s see-through purplish color. They need to bring that back because it was rad. I loved it. Game Boy Advance, we're still going to go B tier. Same thing, right? Like we're just making it a better version of the previous one. But I feel like a lot of people kind of dropped off on this one, at least in my eyes. We still had some good Pokemon games and some good JRPGs for sure. I personally didn't spend a lot of time on the Game Boy Advance. I had one. I played a handful of games, but that was about it. Still a good handheld. GameCube. It's so tough, man. Okay. Because, like, I have to think not just with my personal opinion and the bigger picture. I do think the GameCube has a fucking phenomenal lineup of video games. Like, stellar from start to finish. There wasn't a ton of GameCube games in my eyes that were, like, originals. But what we did get was phenomenal. I mean, at least in my eyes, just right off the bat. Pikmin, one of my favorite games of all time. I think that they kind of fixed up their controller a little bit, at least from Nintendo 64. We're back to just two joysticks, whatever you want to call them. You don't have this 3-prong bullshit. I don't really get the little Z button, the Z roller with the yellow, but that's fine. The couple things that I dislike, I think the console itself was kind of whack. I don't get the smaller discs. It was kind of dumb. I never had any tech issues with it, so that's a plus. Usually Nintendo, aside from the N64 controller and some of the cartridges getting, like, you have to actually clean them, and no, you don't just blow on them. Yes, if you're a Nintendo person who actually knows a thing or two, that doesn't help. You do have to actually clean them with some, like, alcohol, like rubbing alcohol and like a cotton swab or whatever. But aside from that, like, I really never ran into any issues. All right, so on to the next one, we have the N-Gage. I think this was very poor performance. If you look, there's too many buttons. They try to program everything. The games that I had on there were just kind of whack. I didn't have anything cool. I think I got it from, I don't even know. I honestly don't even know where I got it. We used to buy, like, stuff off eBay, and I think this was like a lotted thing with some other game related console stuff, and it just really wasn't great. Nintendo DS, fantastic handheld, probably the best they've done. There's so many great consoles on there. So many great games on there. It is a fan favorite, and I understand why. They're still selling off the shelves. A lot of the 3DS too. TurboGrafx, I didn't play a lot of it. I have about 5 games on there. I think one of them was even Frogger. It's whatever. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's not as good as the Atari. It has a shit controller, and I had tech issues with it, and then it broke, and I've never played it since. Original PlayStation is fantastic. There's so many goddamn good games on there. I mean, when Sony really got on the map, they brought some guns. I mean, I think just tech-wise, it was a fantastic leap into the, 1990s, 2000s. Sorry, guys, I keep getting interrupted with work and people in my house being loud, so I don't remember where we're at, but yeah, we're talking about the PlayStation. I mean, I think we're talking this is a powerhouse of a console that really brought a whole new wave of entertainment to the gaming community. I mean, dude, the list of PlayStation 1 games that we could go over, best PS1 games of all time. I mean, we're talking, God, there's so many. Top 5 best PS1 games of all time. We're just going to go through this right here. Parappa the Rappa's great. Oddworld's great. Crash Bandicoot, Spider-Man, Mega Man. Ape Escape I never played, but heard was great. Crash Team Racing. Some people argue it's just as good, if not better, than what's it called? Mario Kart. I get the argument. Siphon Filter's great. Soul Reaver, that's my wife's favorite game of all time. Final Fantasy Tactics, I've never played Tactics, but some of the other Final Fantasy games are so good. Medal of Honor Underground's good. Final Fantasy IX. Silent Hill is one of my favorite horror games of all time. Still holds up and is even just as creepy with the shitty graphics. Spyro, Spyro's a staple. Driver's great. Crash Bandicoot 2. I don't know what this is. Vagrant Story? A massive action RPG? Yo. We're always down for that. Holy fuck! Why is it so expensive? God, okay. I know PS1 games are super sought after. And God, the collection market is insane. As someone who spends time collecting video games and also buying and reselling games, anytime I come across a PlayStation 1 bundle or group, I just buy all of them because you never know which one you're going to find that's going to be $400 on eBay. Tekken 3 is great. Resident Evil, is one of the best PlayStation 1 games ever. Tomb Raider's huge. Tony Hawk Pro Skater's great. All the Gran Turismos are great. Probably the best Castlevania game ever made. Symphony of the Night. Final Fantasy VII. Obviously, we all know about Final Fantasy VII. I'm personally a bigger fan of Final Fantasy VIII. Fight me. Whatever. And then Metal Gear Solid. That's just a top 25 list. And those are all bangers. We're talking creating game franchises that last all the way until now. There's still new Metal Gears. There's still Crash Bandicoots, Tekkens. It's still going. PlayStation 1 was a powerhouse. However, guess what? And then it was followed up by the most best-selling and biggest console of all time, the PlayStation 2. Let's see what we can find for best PS2 games of all time. Because I know it's going to be even better. PlayStation 2 is the jam, man. I don't consider myself a Sony or Microsoft guy. I'm a gamer. I like both. Let's see. I've never played this. We're just going to go through these and kind of highlight some of them. The Thing I heard was good. Super creepy. Yeah, let's just cut down to the top 25 again. Sorry, I'm sure we're missing some people's favorite games, but I don't have time to go through all this because we still got other shit to do. All right, Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. Fucking phenomenal game. I have all of these. Just a load of fun. They're like the clone. They're like Star Wars Clone Wars, Star Wars whatever. The ones where it's like you pick a hero and you go out and fight armies. Fantastic. Persona. All the Persona franchises, fantastic, and Persona 4 is no exception. So good. The snowboarding game. If you didn't play this, go out and find yourself a PS2 for $50 and buy this. You'll have a blast. Dark Cloud, 10 out of 10. Soul Calibur 2, 10 out of 10. Guitar Hero. We're starting Guitar Hero on PS2. Everyone knows what Guitar Hero is. Guitar Hero was bigger than the PlayStation 2 itself. Guitar Hero was ginormous. I've never had the chance to play this game, but it is on my list. I heard it's amazing. Jak and Daxter, Jak 3. Everyone loves those ones. Devil May Cry. The third one's really good, but the whole franchise, fantastic. Silent Hill 2, better than the first one. Resident Evil 4, better than the first three. Gran Turismo 4, better than the first... No, better than the third one. Probably not better than the first two. Sly, I've never gotten to these, but they're in people's top 10 lists all the time. Time Splitter 2, fantastic. Metal Gear Solid, great follow-up. God of fucking War. I mean, come on, guys. God of War. PlayStation 2 was amazing. Virtual Fighter 4, I've never gotten to those ones, but I've heard they're great. Dark Cloud 2, never got into that, but I know it's on like a lot of top JRPG lists. Eco, I've actually never heard of. Might have to check that one out. God of War 2, better than the first one. Jak and Daxter, huge game. Huge game. Ratchet and Clank, huge game. Final Fantasy X, phenomenal. Shadow of the Colossus, one of the best games ever fucking made. What do they have for their number one? Metal Gear Solid 3. Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, you see what I'm saying, guys? Like, we're talking PS2 was... They had to make the list 50 games because there's so many to mention. It's phenomenal. PlayStation Portable was pretty much dog shit. PSP, I have one. I actually have the God of War edition that I'm hoping one day will be a collector's item. We're going to move that up there because it shouldn't be in this range. It's not that bad. PlayStation Portable, though, we're definitely going C-list. PlayStation 3, oh, man. I think PlayStation 3 produced some of the best games ever created by humans, meaning like Last of Us, Uncharted, different things like that. But I don't think I can put it in this top echelon. I think it could be argued up there, but we're not doing it. PlayStation Vita was in fact better than the PlayStation Portable, but still not awesome. PlayStation 4, I think that we're going to put it in a B list, and I think that it will grow as time... I mean, I think that's probably where we'll stay. This is probably where I'm going to put PS5 as well, and maybe the PS5 will continue to grow. Sega Master System is a solid C, not great. However, the Sega Genesis had some phenomenal classic games. Should I look for a Sega Genesis top list? Let me see. Best games for Sega Genesis. I mean, we all know some of them right off the whip. So we got Street Fighter 2's phenomenal. Castlevania Bloodlines is phenomenal. Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Mortal Kombat's great. Ghostbusters is fun. I own that one. Have you ever wanted to play a game that makes you realize that you're dog shit? The Aladdin game and the Lion King game. If you don't believe me and you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. These games are harder than fuck for no reason. Spider-Man, I've actually never played that. Streets of Rage, love them. I have all of them that have ever came out. I never, like I said, never got in the Virtual Fighters. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Damn, that sounds like interesting. I don't know what that is. I mean, there's some ones that I would throw out here, like NBA Jam, like is a classic. Boogerman is a classic. I mean, Battletoads I think was on Genesis. There's tons of them on there. Game Gear. Game Gear's better than the Neo Geo, but still not great. Sega Saturn. I'd put that about there too. It's not the greatest console. There's some good games on there though. Dreamcast. I really enjoyed the Dreamcast, but I don't think I could respectfully put him on there. Man, I've just been getting bombarded, so this is going to be a highly edited tier list, which normally doesn't happen. Usually it's just one take. But we're back, and we were talking about the Dreamcast. Now, I want to pull up some of the best games for Dreamcast, because I have some of my personal favorites. I, in fact, did own a Dreamcast. Well, excuse me, my father purchased a Dreamcast because I was fairly young at this point. But there are some bangers, but some of them are not necessarily Dreamcast originals. So like we have Soul Calibur, phenomenal game, but not originally on there. Pro Skater 2, we had NFL 2K1, Jet Grind Radio, I think was an original. Resident Evil Code Veronica, I'm not sure if that was an original, I've never played that one. Quake is great, Series of Arcadia I've never played of. We got 2K. Obviously, those games were super popular. This is one of my personal all-time favorites, is the Capcom 2. It's just so good. All the characters were good. The levels were good. The matchmaking, well, not matchmaking, but the like verses were good. Unreal Tournament. I mean, I guess this is really where I actually, to be honest with you, I liked the the NFL 2K games just as much as the Madden games. And obviously we know 2K is basketball and still is the preferred basketball games. A lot of JRPGs popped off on the Dreamcast. One of my favorites of all time is Record of Lodos War, which usually doesn't get talked about because it was a smaller end JRPG, but still fantastic. Crazy Taxi 2 is great. That's just called Seaman. That's hilarious. Railroad Tycoon 2 I actually played. It's really good. Bomberman Online. Like, there were some good games, but a lot of it was like they weren't just on Dreamcast. They weren't like Dreamcast originals, you know. So I don't think that I could put Dreamcast super high on the list, but I will say that Dreamcast, fun fact, Dreamcast rivals PlayStation 1 for the best startup sound of any console. I'm going to go ahead and play it for you. And you can tell me if you think this isn't, if you disagree with me, then whatever, but hold on. Got to get an ad out of the way because, you know, YouTube. Ah, so good. So good. Oh, here's the other one. Just 10 out of 10. But I mean, we do gotta, if we're showing off that one, we gotta show off PlayStation. God, I get the chills. I'm such a fucking nerd. Yeah, PlayStation 1 still holds it down. What am I kidding? But Dreamcast is still good, damn it. Dreamcast is still good, okay? But yeah, PS1 still takes it down as the best opening of any console. GameCube's up there too, because it's cute and funny. Alrighty then, let's get into some of these ones. We got the Xbox, the Microsoft. Now, I have a jaded opinion on this. Well, I shouldn't say jaded. I have a influenced opinion on this because I had a PlayStation 2 and played the ever-loving shit out of it. But when Xbox came out, I was primarily only playing Xbox. And when the 360 came out, I got the 360 over the PS3. And then by the end of the 360 cycle, I started working my own. Like I was 14 or 15. I started working, and then I was able to buy my own shit after that. But I have to go at this with a unbiased opinion, because I do think, even though I played more Xbox and Xbox 360, maybe not more than the PS1 or PS2, but definitely PS3. The consoles are worse than the PlayStations. They always have been. They've always been behind tech-wise, I think, up until these new ones, until the Series X and the PS5. I think Series X is right there with it, if not better. But, man, the Xbox was so influential, and the Xbox 360 was so influential in my life. And I'm not just talking like, oh, I just spent hours wasting time playing video games. No. Like, the Xbox and Xbox 360, like, built friendships for me. Like, where this room right now that I'm in used to be the hangout room for all of my friends. This was like the bro room, you know. All the dudes would come over all the way from when I was a kid until about near the end of high school. This was the place. I had like 2 or 3 couches. I had one of those old ass like big projection TVs that are like 4 feet wide and like 6 feet tall and like several hundred pounds. I had all the consoles set up, and we just played games. And we hung out, and like some of the best memories of my life were in this room. And it's super weird being back here and recording content. Like, I've never talked about this, right? Like, this room has more emotional, I don't know how to word it. Like, this room in my head is like a safe place, like a fucking, like, I built so much here with friends and family and stuff, like, and now this is where I do my podcast. Like, it's gone full circle, and I love it. And it's hard for me to rate the Xbox and the Xbox 360, because for me personally, right, they're S tier, both of them, because for me, like, my best friend growing up, his name's Austin. We played all these games co-op. And then when the 360 came out, and specifically Halo 3, it was like a rite of passage at my house. Like, all my friends would, like, we would get into Halo 3, and we would stay, like, they would stay the night, and we would beat Halo 3, like, together. Like, I did this with, like, all my friends. And I don't know why. It wasn't like I wanted to play Halo 3 a dozen times all the way through. But it just, like, that's what happened. Like, we'd be, like, usually what would happen is, like, we'd have, like, 10 people here playing, like, System Link, and we would always do Sand Trap with, like, 360% speed, 0 gravity, and we did it like a zombies thing. So one person had a hammer, and then everyone else would get in warthogs and try and, like, avoid the guy. And we would just play it for hours, and then as people left and went home, like, someone would end up being here until, like, 3 in the morning, and we would jump on the campaign and we'd play it all night. You know, one of my other good buddies who don't talk anymore, you know, he came over almost every day and we would game. And, you know, Forrest, who was on here, has spent time here. Chandler, who's been on here, has spent time here. Manuel, who's been on the podcast, has spent time here. Like, all of the people you've seen on the podcast mostly have spent time in this room. And playing Xbox, playing video games, playing the N64. Like, they're just so influential for me. And you know what? This is my list. I don't care. Y'all can say I'm wrong. That's fine. I don't care. For me, they're S tier. That's just going to have to be it. That's what we're doing. I can't, like, Gears of War, I mean, there's so many memories, man. Going to Hollywood Video or Blockbuster for more mainstream, and renting games for 5 days and, like, binging them with friends. We had Game Crazy before GameStop, and, like, It's just so many memories, man. I can't not put him in S2. Xbox One, though, I can put you in B tier because it wasn't great. Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, I have not purchased them because I am now a big old fucking... Let me show you. Ba-ba! Glorious PC Master Race. I'm just kidding, man. I am, though. I own some of the old consoles still. I have most of them, but I pretty much only play on PC now. So, but this is my list. We're checking it twice. We're going to call it good. We're going to check the community rankings and watch Xbox and 360 B and D tier. I'm curious what other people have. Oh, GameCube as one is a stretch, for sure. 360 is up here. Respect. So is Xbox. Okay. PlayStation, 64, DS. Okay. Maybe I missed out on Game Boy Advance. I'm surprised that that's there. PlayStation 2, Wii. I had Wii originally in there. PS4, I don't know. I guess that makes sense. There's some bangers on there. PlayStation 3, A-list. Oh, Dreamcast. People had Dreamcast higher. And PSP higher. Okay. Wii U, I don't know about that, man. That's a stretch. Xbox One, Sega Saturn, PS Vita. Okay. They have Xbox S and the PlayStation 5 is C tier. That's funny. Probably because we can't fucking get them and scalpers are selling them for thousands of dollars. And then a whole bunch of random nonsense here that no one probably even knows about. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out today. Sorry this is an edited one, but I just kept getting calls and interruptions. But this is my list. Let me know what you guys think. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.